What's going on, football overseas? I'm Kevin from Blaugrana Zone, and I'm bringing you La Liga Jornada 2 Week 2 game predictions. Let's jump right in. So first up, we've got Real Betis versus Deportivo Alaves. Alaves just had a nice 2-1 win against Levante. Betis coming off a 1-1 draw versus Elche, which no one was expecting because Betis had a pretty good showing last season, but now we know that they're missing some key players. There were several holes in their team that I think other teams are going to be able to exploit. So now for Betis versus Deportivo Alaves, I've got Betis coming out with a win. Next up, we've got Mallorca versus Celta. Mallorca Barca was a game to watch last week. In case you missed it, in case you've been living under a rock, Barca won that 3-0. And Celta Vigo had a very lackluster game against Getafe, which I think they'll be coming back with a vengeance for revenge. I think that Celta come out on top in that one. Next, we've got Atletico Madrid versus Elche. As I mentioned before, Elche draw with Real Betis. Atletico Madrid had a pretty nasty loss to Espanyol. I'm expecting Atletico Madrid to come back strong, because they spent so much money this summer. Everyone's looking at them like, what do you expect to do with all that? Fucking lose against bottom tier teams. So I think Atletico Madrid are going to come back this week and pick up a win against Elche. Next, we've got Levante versus Football Club Barcelona. I didn't save them for last this time. I'm going to try to not be biased with them when I make these videos. I say that as I have a Barca jersey on, Barca jersey there, fucking Peru, whatever. Levante last week had a bad loss, 2-1 against Alaves, but that's a pretty narrow loss, so it could have gone either way. Levante at least got a goal on the score sheet. But for Levante Barca, even though it's away for Barca, which have been historically difficult games for us, I'm gonna say Barcelona comes out on top. Next up, Osasuna versus Valencia. So Osasuna last week had that really weird loss against Real Madrid. Very narrow loss, very nasty loss. They put it in the hands of the refs, really. So for Osasuna versus Valencia, who are coming off a 1-1 draw from Sociedad, and Osasuna, I don't know. It's kind of like a battle of who was beat down worse the first week. Because when I think of my club losing the first week, I feel like the next week they're gonna come out stronger because it's like you're not gonna start on a losing streak either, right? So I think Osasuna are gonna battle back to beat Valencia because last week they kept up with Real Madrid, right? They kept up with a top tier team. So I think Osasuna get the win against Valencia. Next, we've got Real Sociedad versus Espanyol. Espanyol had that good win against Atletico, even though it was a narrow win. No one was expecting Espanyol to be good without Joan Garcia, without their goal stopper. And Sociedad, who just had a tie against Valencia. I'm gonna say if Sociedad play the way they're supposed to, the way that we know that they play historically, they'll win against Espanyol. I'm going with Sociedad win. Next, we've got Villarreal versus Girona. Girona that had that pretty embarrassing loss against Rayo Vallecano, 3-1. It's very lackluster. It's unheard of for Rayo to have these kind of wins, but they're sneaky on the come up. You know what I mean? Girona 2-3 years ago they were challenging for top 4, but now it looks like they're back. They're gonna be back in relegation zone. I don't have high hopes for Girona. I think Villarreal will get that win. Next, we have Real Oviedo versus Real Madrid. I don't know if it's Oviedo or Oviedo, however you want to pronounce it is fine. Real Madrid that obviously had that robbery of a win against Osasuna from a penalty that Mbappe drew, but he fouled the guy, so I don't even know how that was a foul. I don't really like those wins that you leave in the referee's hands. I don't like a narrow win like that. If you're going to win like that, at least, pile on the goals, right? Oviedo that has that 2-0 loss from Villarreal hanging over them. I want to say that they tie, but unfortunately, with the way Real Madrid pays refs, does devil magic in the back, like Real Madrid will pull off a win. Next, we have Atletico Bilbao versus Rayo Vallecano. Rayo that came off that 3-1 win, like I mentioned before, against Girona. And Atletico Bilbao that are coming off of a nice little win against Sevilla, a 3-2 win. I'm gonna say Rayo win this game. And that's not just because I'm a Nico Williams Bilbao hater. So I'm gonna say Rayo win. Next up, we've got Sevilla versus Getafe. I just mentioned Sevilla lost 3-2 last week to Atletico Bilbao, and Getafe had that 2-0 win against Celta. Like I said before, I expect a team that loses the first week, I expect them the next week to come out super strong, take no prisoners, hit the ground running. I'm going to say Sevilla win for the last game of Jornada 2, match week 2. These were my predictions. Let me know in those comments if you guys agree, disagree. Who do you think is coming out with 3 points this week? Who's going to be on top of the leader charts in week 2? Who's going to win week 2 of La Liga, right? I just want to remind everybody to not get too ahead of yourselves with these wins or losses. You know, it's a 30-something week league, so we can't get lost this early, but it's fun to, you know, make early predictions and see who's going to stand out. So let me know what you guys think in those comments. If you want to see more of me, you can catch me on Blaugrana Zone. I'll have it in the description. And thank you so much, Football Overseas. I'll see you next time.